My job is to make college easier because students have a lot on their hands.
All right. Slavery in antebellum America.
Key to the Southern economy by the early 19th century, chattel slavery, the holding of enslaved Africans as property, led to unimaginably inhumane treatment.
Vocabulary.
Although some enslaved laborers worked on small farms, the majority worked on plantations. Large estates where cash crops were grown. Their workdays were long, beginning before sunset.
All right. So if you guys should have looked at your vocabulary last night,
Although
we should have known about chattel slavery. That's one of your vocabulary words.
Inhumane treatment. Although some enslaved laborers worked on small farms, the majority worked on plantations.
Plantation. That's one of your vocabulary.
Their workdays were long, beginning before sunrise, lasting until after sunset, and difficult as they labored tirelessly in the hot sun, doing a variety of agricultural and other tasks. When the day was done, slaves endured harsh living conditions. Enslaved workers were housed in small, crudely built cabins. They rarely had enough food to eat, and the spread of diseases such as cholera and hepatitis was rampant. Enslaved workers faced other threats beyond backbreaking labor. Planters frequently separated families by selling individuals to other plantations. White slaveholders sexually harassed and raped African American women. Because of, or perhaps in spite of, these circumstances, enslaved workers looked for ways to resist. Among other tactics, many destroyed crops, slowed their work, and faked illnesses. Some enslaved workers tried to escape to the north.
All right. What they do to? Okay, first they destroyed the what? Then they what? Fake they was sick. They fake that they was sick like y'all was doing when y'all don't want to come through.
Yeah.
And then they slowed down their labor. All right. There's three things that you need to remember.
Often using the Underground Railroad, a secret system of safe houses managed by conductors who helped slaves escape to freedom. In rare cases, enslaved workers led uprisings and revolts against slaveholders. One example is Nat Turner's 1831 rebellion in Virginia. A slave and religious leader, Turner and his followers killed 60 white men, women, and children. The rebellion was soon put down, but Turner eluded capture for 2 months. In the meantime, some 50 African Americans were tried, about half of whom were found guilty. After his arrest, Turner and 16 of his followers were executed. Following Nat Turner's rebellion, slaveholders considered additional uprisings to be highly plausible.
What is plausible? Possible. It was most likely to happen. So what do we call people? It's like now that they become this word that we talk about people like they think that someone is always out to get them. What is the word? Say it again. Paranoid. They think that someone is always out to get them. They're paranoid. So they became paranoid. So now that anybody, I don't care if they was whispering, they was in a huddle, they started talking to each other about something. I'm paranoid.
We need Jakari Williams for checkout.
Thank you. He's on the way. Jakari. And so now they're paranoid that is going to be another uprising, that some people are going to get killed, right?
In addition to more direct forms of resistance, Africans forced to the Americas and their descendants resisted the hardships of their lives through their families, religion, folklore, and music, creating a rich African American culture. When enslaved Africans were brought to the Americas, slave owners forced them to abandon their native cultures. Enslaved Africans responded by developing a new cultural identity that borrowed from Euro-American social traditions and maintained distinctive African elements. Many enslaved Africans adopted Christianity, for example, but they retained elements of their African spiritual traditions. Other important parts of slave culture were storytelling and music. storytelling continued a long-lived oral tradition and helped preserve elements of African culture. Traditional folk tales.
Alright, Paul. Does anyone's family have like a tradition or things that have been passed along through your generations? Say for example, as we begin to track back in my family, we trace back things, and then my great grandmother, my grandmother, they used to tell us stories about things that they did as children, how life was for them when they were children. My grandfather, he used to tell us stories about when he was a boy, how his parents were freed slaves, and that he was there when they first invented the car. And there's something you got to be like ancient. When they first invented the car, then he told us stories about that, because when I was a little girl, he told us that he was 90 years old. And he never got any older than 90 from the time I was a little girl. So whenever he told us a story, he would say he was 90 years old. When I was grown, I was married, he said that he was still 90 years old. When my kids were born, he said he was still 90 years old, but he still told us stories. He was way over into the hundreds of years old, but he told us stories, but they didn't have birth certificates and different things like that that they had to verify who they were, what year they were born. He just took up to say that he was born, his birthday, we celebrated in October, because he didn't know the day. He just knew it was like starting to get cool weather or whatever, and so they just took that day up. But he had stories to tell all about the things that they did. Maybe you would do it like with your cousins or whatever, because when my sons get together with their cousins or whatever, then they talk about, do you remember when we was little, that time that we went down there and we pulled the car out of gear and we ran down the bush? You know, they just tell stories about things that they did with the kids. Y'all don't have anybody that does that kind of stuff to tell you stories? Or maybe it's your mom's sister or brother or somebody, and they sit around and they talk about what happened to them when they were growing up. That's all it is. They're keeping their past alive. The stuff that they did, whether they went to church, whether they didn't go to church, all that stuff, that's what they're doing to keep it alive so that you can tell people about it. They tell it to you, then you tell people about it. That way, in a sense, even though they may not be here with us anymore, what they did is still passed on.
For instance, featured characters like the clever Brer Rabbit, who routinely outsmarted bigger and stronger animals, and beloved Bible stories encouraged community resilience in the face of hardship. Religious songs in the form of spirituals also became prominent in enslaved and free black society. Many of these songs followed a call and response pattern, in which a performer would sing a line or stanza to the group, and the group would respond in unison with an answering chorus.
Ain't no way y'all nobody know. Well, okay, first of all, let's say, just for example, I wasn't brought up in church. So a lot of people, they've been going to church since they was very little, and they were brought up in church. They sat there, and either they sang in the choir, they did little stuff in church. They was junior ushers, all them kind of stuff. They did. Okay, I was not. But at a later date, after I got an adult, I started attending church. But every church that I have attended, they had songs or choirs or somebody that sang something. Who's ever experienced that? They have a praise and worship group, even if it's like 3 or 4 people, they get up and sing, and then you have a musician, a drummer. Okay, so the person that we call, they're the lead singer, y'all know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Okay, they're the lead singer. They sing a part of the song, and then the people that are in the background, they sing their part of the song. And so those things meant something that even without the music that we have today, pianos and keyboards and guitars and all this stuff, they still had songs that they sang and clapping their hands and stomping their feet and doing stuff. And it was a rhythm that nobody could take it away from them. Let me give, for example, who's played drums or play drums? Okay. All right. Do you feel sometimes like you're sitting there, all of a sudden you start moving your head or tapping your you know, or just tapping along or something, and you begin to feel a rhythm or a beat, and before you know it, you're beating. If you're not careful, someone else will start in, and they'll start going along with you. It's their rhythm, it's that beat. And those are things that they brought with them that kept them motivated to keep moving. Well, it's glad to have you back. You was checked out and came back pretty fast, huh?
It was a mistake.
I thought you got kicked out.
He thought I caught my brother caught.
Oh, okay. All right.
Rituals not only frame the hardships faced by enslaved people in biblical terms, but they also pass coded messages about plans for escaping to freedom right under the noses of their masters. For example, in the song Follow the Drinking Gourd, listeners are given these directions. When the sun comes back and the first quail calls, follow the drinking gourd. For the old man is awaiting for to carry you to freedom if you follow the drinking gourd. Decoded, the lyrics, the sun comes back, the first
Decoded,
quail
what that
calls,
mean?
say to set out,
Broke down.
Okay, not decomposed. Decoded.
Oh,
Like translation. So
To translate the message of what it means. To break it down, I mean they'll be decomposing to break it down into smaller pieces. But to decode, it means to give you what the message means. And so when they're singing a song, then they had to really be sneaky. You know about being sneaky on
nah,
You have-
I ain't sneaking.
you really know, y'all know about how to be sneaky. Oh, this one right here. You know about being, so they had songs that they sing so that they could get to where they wanted to go. And so they would tell them the times they need to be there and everything. So they would sing a song, and to the slave owners, they was just singing songs like they always did. But those songs meant something so that those that were trying to get to freedom, they knew what to do. Why?
in early spring. They are also told to follow the drinking gourd, that is, the Big Dipper constellation, which points to the North Star. This will lead them to the Old Man, an agent of the Underground Railroad, and to freedom, usually in the free northern states or Canada.
All right. So they had all the different ways that they were to get from where they, hold on, heads up. Everybody should have got good sleep last night, right? You should have. Even if you didn't, you should have. Can you turn the lights back on? All right, antebellum, our article that we were supposed to go over our study guide, which was in Canvas. You should have written your study guide, which was in Canvas. Those of you, some of you, I don't know why you didn't.
You didn't tell her, because my friend Lauren told, she was talking about that this morning, I told her that she could tell.
This class, there was something happening with this class, I don't know why, maybe it
The
was,
bell rung too quick.
okay, so when the bell rung, cause yesterday was a short day, and I didn't get to give you this, but that's okay, you still got it, it's in Canvas. You were supposed to be reading, the presence, the antebellum, let's see what, a contested presence, free blacks in the antebellum, Mississippi, 1820 through 1860. You are supposed to read that, and then you are going to give discussion questions. That means that you are going to create your own discussion questions. You need to create 3 of them, all right? So when you're reading this, while you're reading, I don't want you to give me some basic questions where all I have to do is give a name. Say, for example, I say, who was president during the Louisiana Purchase? And then all I have to do is say, Thomas Jefferson. All right? That's all, but that's not the kind of question I'm looking for. I'm looking for you to write a question that we can discuss. That's whether, if you're giving me an opinion about what you think about something that happened, so that you can ask somebody else their opinion about something that happened. Either way, we need 3 discussion questions. We're gonna take those questions, we're gonna put them together, and then we're gonna put them out there for other people to answer them. Now, when you write your discussion questions. Don't just write some random stuff and then just say you're gonna throw it out there for somebody to answer. You've got to know the answer to the question that you write. Okay? So you're going to write your discussion question, and then you're going to write your answer to the discussion question. You guys are going to pass them to me, and then I'm going to ask them to the class tomorrow. Okay? So let's make sure that we have that. Don't say, what are we supposed to do tonight?
Write their discussion questions
Uh-huh.
and
Know the
write
answer
your
to them.
answers
Write your answer to them.
and pass them to these marshals.
All right, but also, what else we need to go into Canvas and do? Study guide. We need to go into Canvas and write our study guide.
Bitch, when I went to Camden, I seen like 2 or 3 stuff that
It uploaded twice for some reason. It's the same one. It's just in there. It's in there twice, but it's the same thing. So it doesn't matter which one you open up. It's still going to end up being the same thing. Here, let me pull this up. For those who were absent, or I don't think there's anybody in here. Did we have anybody else that was missing? You know,
No.
you moved right there. Somebody right here. Nobody sits right here in front of you. Let me just make sure. So when you are missing stuff, and I upload stuff to Canvas, like for example, I uploaded chapter 5, section 1, then section 2, and section 3. That's going to be stuff that we'll be doing here in class. So when you look at it on Canvas and you see all those assignments, that is not for you. That is for those who are missing. Like if they're out for whatever reason, you know, we have people that's been out due to COVID or whatever. That's for them. So don't go in there and say, what is this assignment? Because I had someone emailing me asking me about the assignments, all right? Let's move on. All right, so now, let's look at your article right quick. Y'all ready? Y'all got your article right?
Yeah, I got mine.
All right. During its first half century as a territory and state, 1810 through 1860, Mississippi was an agrarian frontier society. What is agrarian? Here. What is agrarian? Think of the first 3 letters. A-G-R. Agriculture. Not agua. Go around over there. They should be sitting up there. Wait a minute. Right here they go. Right here under this. There we go. Yeah. Have a seat, ma'am. All right, so let's, as a matter of fact, go ahead and read this first paragraph right here until we get to paragraph 2.
During its first half century as a territory in state 1810 and 1860, Mississippi was an
Agrarian.
frontier society. Its population was made up of 4 groups: Indians, white slaves, and free blacks.
Okay, let's make sure we are underlining that. Indians, whites, slaves, and free blacks. All right? Go ahead.
All 4 groups were present in Mississippi from its territorial beginning. Black in Mississippi and elsewhere in the South became free in several ways. Prior to 1825, it was common and legal for slaves to become free, either by purchasing their freedom or by slaveholders freeing them. Beginning in the mid-1820s, both forms of
Emancipation.
became increasingly less common and even illegal. The primary pathway to free status for blacks was blocked.
Okay, so now, yesterday, remember we watched the video yesterday? All right, And so they had people, and I was telling you an example. What was the example that I gave for people that was trying to earn their freedom? Or that were trying to pay back something that they owed?
They had to work.
a certain amount of time.
They had to work for a certain amount of time. But today, who were the people that I was telling you that was doing that?
The what?
We don't have, you shouldn't have slaves today. And I told you they was picking up paper, they was side the road.
Maybe.
No.
Yes. So those people that may have been arrested for a fine. Remember I said the people that were arrested for a fine, they would be out there, be picking up paper, they would be doing different types of work because they're earning, they're paying off something. So they had indentured servants, or there were people that was working either to purchase their freedom or the purchase of a loved one's freedom. And so this is what they were doing there. They were trying to purchase their freedom for someone else or for someone that they love. But somehow they tried to make it illegal. All right, next reading. Somebody else. Go ahead.
In the decades after the 1820s, the legal avenues for freedom and emancipation were limited only to children born to free mothers and parents, and to those approved by the Mississippi legislature through petitions for emancipation. With the passage of the 1822 law, the legislature became directly involved in slave emancipation for the purpose of limiting the state's free black population. The 1822 law gave the legislature authority to approve or reject all slave emancipations in the state. Largely as a result, slave emancipation sharply declined and Mississippi's free black population remained small, never exceeding 1,040.
Okay. So now they made everything, they put everything, in other words, they put everything in their own favor. They needed slaves. All right, they needed slaves to work because first of all, the slaves were doing all of the labor they needed to what? For what? The slaves were doing all the labor that they needed. You remember, okay, if this was an agrarian society, I hate that word. If that means that everything had to do with agriculture. So then if they had cotton and tobacco and corn and all of these things, the slaves were out doing all that work. And in order for them to make more money, they needed to have more slaves to get this stuff done. All right, and so this was going to benefit them. And so now I'm making laws and carrying out laws that slaves cannot be free so that I can keep my free work. I'm saying if I let everybody go, then that means now I got to hire people. So if I hire people, then what that means, then I'm gonna have to do? I'm gonna have to spend money. So if I hire people, I've got to pay people to work. I don't wanna do that. I want all these people working for me for free. You know, how we want to get all A's for free.
Yeah.
Right? We want all A's for free, right? If you could just walk in this classroom and just sit in here and make an A without doing anything, wouldn't that be great?
Yep.
But that doesn't happen in real life.
Wish it did.
Sadly, it don't happen in real life. Okay? So, third reader, final reader, we're gonna be done. One more person, come on. I already had two, all I need is one more reader.
I'll read.
Okay,
No, it's already there.
Tyler, go ahead.
Mississippi's free black population remains small, never exceeding 1,400. About 1810, the decade when Mississippi stayed free blacks number fewer than 300, following statehood in 1817. That saw the free black slave population, while nearly doubling, remained
Comparatively.
small, totaling only 400 again in 1820 and 1830. The stage free black community had grown modestly to 519 during April 1830, and by 1840, Mississippi's free black
This is populous.
populace stood at roughly 1,400, increasing more than 150% over the previous decade, before 1830s. Was followed by the decline of almost
Secession. What is secession? Oh, secession. Remember, it was our vocabulary last week. Not sectionalism. Secession. You talking about annexation? So this means that the state withdrew from the union. The state withdrew from the union. Secession. That means that they withdrew from the union. All right. And so all of this is happening leading up to the Civil War. And so we're going to be talking about the Civil War, slavery and the Civil War next week. All right? We're going to be talking about that next week.